Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the worst 120 minutes in all of sports podcasting. That is right. It is time once again for the Too Many Guys Soccer Show. I am Mike, and we are here on a slightly belated Mother's Day podcast, sending our late, but still much appreciated shouts out to all the mothers out there. We all have one. And to all the mothers in our crew, Mrs. Montgomery with her lovely two children, Mrs. Rosali, and Mrs. McGinty, the newest mother in the group, and of
McGinnity.
course, McGinnity.
I forget that syllable all the time.
Yeah, Mrs. McGinnity, the newest mom in the group, and especially, I did not forget, Mrs. Gallagher, and your two lovely, bouncing bundles of joy.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I could not have said it better. Happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day.
Yes, to all of our moms, and we appreciated them. And so we gave everybody the day off yesterday to recover from what I'm sure was a day of running around with the kids. In fact, I believe outside of you and Coach Matt, the other husbands of children will not be able to join us today, as they are still recovering from that rare weekend where they actually had to spend it, the entirety of it, with their wife and children.
Absolutely. I made sure that I was at full disposal for whatever she wanted to do. If she wanted to cook, I watched the kids. If she wanted to go back in her garden, I watched the kids. If she wanted to sit in front of the television and watch, I believe her new show is Married at First Sight, I watched the kids. Totally fine. But it was actually.
You did not watch Married at First Sight?
No, I've tried. I sit, spend some time with a lovely spouse, the better half, and try to watch it. And I'm not gonna lie, so it's hard not to get sucked into the drama. It's hard because you often ask yourself, you're like, why would these people agree to do this? And then that curiosity starts to pique your interest. And next thing you know, you're going, why is she still marrying him? He's crazy. No wonder he's still single and has to do this show. He's nuts.
Yeah, I do enjoy the drama of certain reality TV shows.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie, that is one that I have followed through various seasons because the premise just baffles me so much.
And I got married pretty quickly. We met, but dang, I mean,
it wasn't, you didn't meet at the altar.
Oh, absolutely not.
And the drama of all of that and and you do feel like so often that they claim that they don't pair these people for additional drama, but you feel like you had to know that was not going to work. Like, on what planet did that seem like a good idea?
Absolutely.
At what point did that seem like a good idea?
Yeah.
So
yes.
we took my mother-in-law out for a delightful brunch at a restaurant not too far. They had some very delicious shrimp and grits that we supplemented with a fried lobster tail. Very
nice.
Good. Yeah.
Nice.
Of course, she got both my mother-in-law and my father-in-law got bottomless mimosas, which was completely unnecessary because neither one of them were going to finish a full carafe of mimosas on their own, let alone get a refill on it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you gotta love the bottomless mimosa. You gotta love
I was not partaking because I had partied hard on both Friday and Saturday. Friday, I went to a bar and a golf tournament broke out, and I spent the day at Avenel watching TPC.
Oh, you were at Avenel. Okay.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
We had tickets in one of the sponsor boxes, probably the best location on the entire golf course, right at the junction of the 16th green, the 17th tee, and then you can look to the right and see the 18th fairway.
Yeah.
And green. So it was a great place. I mean, you get to watch the 3 final holes. The weather was atrocious.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Fortunately, we were in a tent with unlimited beer.
Yeah. Sunday wasn't as bad as Saturday, but it wasn't great either. Yeah.
Did you go up on Sunday?
No. I'm just saying the weather wise. Yeah.
Sunday wasn't bad at all.
Yeah.
It was a little chilly.
Oh yeah, it was definitely chilly.
But it was cold and rainy. Now about, I want to say about 3-4 o'clock, maybe 3-4 o'clock, somewhere in that time frame. I stopped looking at my watch after a while.
Yeah.
The rain let up for about 2 hours, and we were actually able to go out and watch. And by then, everybody who was still there had quite a few. So that was when you started to get that,
yeah,
put it in the hole.
Yeah, they party out there in Potomac, man. In Avondale, they party. Those people have a good time.
And the golf course looked immaculate. I can't say as much about the walkways in between certain things, like just the sheer amount of mud and stuff like that.
Yeah, they've done a lot of work out there because, like, I think I haven't been out there in probably a decade, but it was clearly needing of some attention. So I'm glad, because like Congressional was really like the destination in that area. So it's good to see that they've put in some time in there to really bring that course back to what it is. That's a nationally recognized course. Absolutely.
Well, they closed it down for 3 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally
close it down.
Tore out everything.
And it needed it. It needed it. I mean, as a guy who likes golf, I can tell you that, even though I play, the public courses, that because I can't afford Avenel, but knowing what that club was, it definitely needed it.
And I just feel bad because the weather on the tournament which is something that the tournament organizers cannot control, was so epically bad. And the timing of the tournament with the PGA Championship starting in 2 weeks, they really couldn't do anything except play the tournament and play through the rain in a situation. And the drainage was doing all right on the greens and the tees, but I mean, it was miserable for spectators. And I'm sure that the golfers themselves weren't having the best of times.
Yeah. And it was one of those things where you just had to get it in, and I get it.
Yeah, and I was talking to somebody else who's been intimately involved in golf tournaments, and talking about how a lot of times they don't do major tournaments there because despite being in one of the wealthiest zip codes in the United States of America and having these gorgeous multi-million-dollar homes right on the course that are absolutely immaculate. Like a lot of the amenities that the tour players are looking for just aren't there, like places to stay.
Yeah, and you know what? There's one location that's relatively close by, and I won't say it's particularly the nicest, and I know since COVID they have not really been open very much. So and knowing that community as well as I do, I can say that that's not likely to change anytime soon.
No.
Yeah.
So I would be happy to go back if they had it again. I mean, it was an absolute blast. I did find it funny spending so much time at the actual tournament while still watching it on TV.
Yeah, I got to try to get to one. I do. I really want to get to one. I'm actually going to be dusting off my clubs this summer. I'm finally healed up from the elbow surgery that I can finally hit some rounds.
Let's go out.
Let's play some links, man.
We almost got a threesome because we could get my cousin Rob involved.
Oh no, already got my buddy. I got a buddy too who's ready to go whenever. So yeah, we can get out there. We got 4. We're good. We're good.
We can have some fun.
My buddy can play too. So
I can't.
I can't play. I'm terrible. Hey, there's 2 rules. There's 2 rules. Play
Drink
well.
A lot.
Yeah. Play well or suck fast. And I just
my goal is going to be to suck fast.
Yeah, exactly. Once that ball goes in the wood a couple times, I just pick it up. I'll just drop where you are. I'm good. my count of strokes doesn't really matter here.
And I mean, even watching just the length, the way that the obstructions that they had to shoot through, the views, the things like that, how they were hitting it and from where. I mean, you get a really good. You can figure out how good they are on TV.
Yeah,
seeing them live and how they just tear that up gives you new appreciation for just how skilled these players are.
Absolutely.
And when you look, and I didn't realize how hilly that course is.
It is. It really is. It really is. It's deceptive. It's deceptively hilly. Yeah, absolutely. I used to take my cross country team back in that area to train, and yeah, you're running around like, oh, well, they're hitting this hill for a while now. Yeah, it's you don't think about it, but it's there. Absolutely.
And so I know they are not necessarily the ones carrying their clubs. Big shouts out to the caddies who are doing that for them. But that's still a lot of walking.
Still a lot of walking. You got that right.
To do over the course of 4 days.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I give them credit, and I'm no longer going to make fun of golfers as being wimps for hanging out there in that rain.
Yeah, that's true.
For 3 hours.
That's true. Hey, look, I don't walk. I'm a cart rider. They don't have no carts. I find another course to play at. Might not even get exercise.
I can tell you, I would not have been out there for that long in that rain playing like they were. Yeah, it's amazing what one will do for $9 million.
That's true.
Or for a shot at it.
Yeah, that's true.
But we digress. Yeah, it was fun. It made that debacle on Saturday, which I will talk about a little bit later, a little more palatable. But we've got more important things to talk about right now. It is time to talk to our good friend, Celtic Camp. Celtic Camp, I was telling Stead I was at the golf tournament on Friday. I sent pictures through. I'm guessing that's the closest that I will likely get to playing a links course in Scotland, insofar as there was a lot of golf and it was pouring rain.
Yeah, that's accurate. Yeah, you're 90% of the way there, basically.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's not the closest I'm going to get. I'm going to be playing a links course in Scotland at some point. That is a bucket list for me. I finally checked off one thing on my sports bucket list, and Mike, you were there when that's watching a haka from the New Zealand national team, and that lit the fire. That's where I was like, you know what? I got to get started on this. I got to get started on this.
Well, if you're wanting to do the old course at St. Andrews, make sure you book about a year in advance.
Oh no, I was going 3.
Yeah, you have to.
I was going to book for 2027, brother.
Man, the wait list is wild.
And it's public though. It's still public.
It's still public.
You gotta love that.
You up in the morning. They get there at like 2, 3 a.m. and will sit there in case someone doesn't show up at the course, and then they give your spot. That person's spot to whoever starts the line. It's wild, man.
Yeah, I will play that course. I will definitely play that course at some point. I will play that course.
I'm with you. I'm at least going to visit it. I don't know if maybe I'll get good enough in 3 years to actually go out there and play it, because I feel like right now I would do more damage to the reputation of St. Andrews by simply being out there swinging a golf club than I would anything else, because they would be, if you let this Yahoo on this course, I am never.
I was going to say, I can already picture, is that Yank okay out there?
Oh, you know what though, but I bet they'll love it, and they'll just can't wait to get you off and just fill you up full of beer and sausages, right?
Right now, I would not.
Cam?
Oh, yeah.
My game is so bad, I would not consider playing a golf course that would allow me to play.
I stick to Top Golf. That's what I stick to Top
Hey,
golf.
man, London Sean will meet us out there. We'll be all good.
So, let's get started with the haps from the land of enchantment. The only country where the national color is pink and the national animal is the unicorn. Gotta love it. You took that one seriously. Celtics win this weekend, but so's up the championship as they go into the last 2 games with a 6-point lead, but more importantly, 20 more on their goal differential than Rangers. So barring the most epic of epic collapses, we can now, we're safe referring to Celtic as the champions elect. We also, in Scotland, we saw Rangers do what we kind of predicted that they were going to do when we discussed it last week. We said that Ibrox was going to be worth 2 clear goals, and sure enough, for Rangers, it was. and they will be in their first major European final since the last time that they were in a European final, which I believe was '08 under Dick Advocaat when they competed in what was the UEFA Cup. They lost that one. So a big week for Celtic, a big week for Scotland. Where do you want to start, my friend?
Yeah, I mean, I guess let's start with Rangers. I think as I say, there's no love lost there, but I do have to say, congrats to them. I think they've had a really impressive campaign. Kind of interesting that it hasn't necessarily mirrored their domestic campaign, but I will say, from a Celtic fan to any Rangers fans that listen, good on you. It's been a really, really impressive run from a team. I mean, just looking at the teams they beat, I mean, I never would have thought it. I really would not have thought it. I mean, that game against Dortmund, that was, I mean, I think the whole of Europe, the whole footballing community was like, what just happened? Same thing with Leipzig. I mean, they've been strategically a masterclass this campaign. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they play, Frankfurt. I'll be honest, Frankfurt isn't necessarily the same caliber maybe as Leipzig and Dortmund. I think they seem to have kind of surprised people just as Rangers have. So I think we've got two teams that have really surprised the fans, and it's going to be really interesting to see them come together.
Hey, Cam, I wanted to, I tend to not say much during the Scottish part because I love your commentary, but I seem to have gotten that vibe online from most Celtic fans that it's like good on you, Rangers. Yeah, I'll see you in the street. I'm going to punch you in the eye, but what you're doing is great for Scottish football. It's getting more eyes on the league and just what they're doing up there. And having watched more games this year because of you primarily, they play a fun game up there. It's fun to watch the SPL. It's fun. And I think if you had to, I think people, as far as Frankfurt's concerned, I think more people have fallen in love with their fans and how they've been supporting their club than the actual squad. Whereas I feel like on the field, people are falling in love with Rangers. And so, I have not professed to support Celtic or Rangers, but I am happy to see one of those two clubs who, I think after winning the league as many times as Celtic and Rangers have won the league, it does lose some of its shine after it happens that many times. So, getting an automatic bid into the group stage of Champions League, getting to a final of a European championship, any European championship, I think is fantastic. I think it's fantastic. So I feel like with Celtic kind of reclaiming the title and getting an automatic spot in Champions League, Rangers getting to this final, they can secure an automatic spot in Champions League. This is really, really an exciting time right now for the SPL. And I think more people are going to be paying attention because I know I am.
I think that's an absolutely fantastic comment, Stead. Imagine two Scottish teams in the Champions League next year in group stage. I mean, I wouldn't have seen that coming. I wouldn't have seen that coming 2 years ago. I think you're absolutely right. I think it's fantastic for the league. And, one of the really interesting things in Scotland is that there is so much kind of, I want to say, hate. No, there is hate. There is hate. Yep. No, it's pure hate. Pure hate between certain teams. But then when the national team plays, it's like everybody supports the same club. And I think this is kind of showing that same situation where it's like, all right, like we get, you're our mortal enemies, but at the same time, you are representing the country as a whole. And I think it is, I would like to think Rangers would do the same thing, our way, who knows? But, but no, it is. I think it's really good for Scottish football. And I think it's really going to hopefully move us up the map a little bit.
Yeah. And good for Giovanni Van Bronckhorst. Good for him.
Yeah, honestly, his season has been really, really impressive. Taking over a club halfway through and then taking them this far.
Yeah.
I mean, really, really impressive.
Is there a feeling that at a certain point, Van Bronckhorst focused on progression in the Europa League over winning the league? And it's going to be odd to say that because they've been so close. I mean, it wasn't until February that Celtic caught up, if you will, and sort of took the lead in the title race. And even then, it was only 1 point for until very recently, when and it didn't get out of hand until the final derby, Old Firm of the season. So, to say that they put the emphasis more on one than the other, I question. I'm trying to find out, do you think that that Van Bronckhorst put more emphasis on the Europa League than the league, even though he was playing the same players? Or do you think that the game that he was playing was just more suited to those two-legged ties, so many of which he had the benefit of having the second leg at home?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think there's two ways to look at it. I think one is exactly that, putting more emphasis on Europe. He definitely put attention to detail. There was a strategic, with Leipzig, I think it really highlights what I saw in Europe. He knew that the first game was going to be away and the second game was going to be home. If you could hold that away game to as few goals, 1 goal, tie, 0-0 sort of thing, then you bring it back to Ibrox and you have a really, really good chance of getting ahead. There's also, I think, there's a lot of feeling between Rangers fans, from what I've seen, that he kind of maybe just spread himself a little bit too thin. And as you say, focused a little more in terms of Europe than domestically when it came to that kind of February timeframe, and saw that, okay, maybe I'll go after this big fish, try to get as far as I can, take some money, that kind of thing. So, I think he definitely has put more emphasis on Europe, and it's played off if that's what he was doing. He's still coming second in the SPFL, which, Celtic's going to net more money, but if he was to win the Europa final, he's going to net more money, I think, than he would coming in second in the SPFL. So I think he made a conscious and calculated decision there for sure.
We've seen Stead and Cam. We've seen teams do this, right? It's hard to deny that Unai Emery didn't do it this year, with Villarreal getting to and being competitive for a while in the Champions League semifinal. There was a point in time where they had tied that up at the expense of his league
for that horrible mistake. It might be telling a different story.
Yeah, and now they find themselves 7th in the league. We saw Fulham do it many years ago.
They had a great run that year too. I think that was when everyone probably saw how great Clint Dempsey could be. But and I believe they played an ungodly number of games that year, just from the qualifying rounds and everything like that to all the cup games they win. That was quite a run. I forgot about that. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, and their league position definitely suffered because they were out of Europe going into the final as a result of, and admitted that they focused on Europe. We've seen any number of teams do it. Jose Mourinho admitted at one point late in his first season that he put more emphasis on winning the Europa League, and that paid off for him because it booked him a 5th Champions League spot that year for Man United. I'm trying to Dick Advocaat kind of did it when he took Rangers on that run in 07-08. We've seen these smaller teams get late into West Ham. That was the one that I was going to say. I would say that David Moyes did that to a certain extent this year. And perhaps you can argue that even Brendan Rodgers did with Leicester, trying to navigate them. Both of them fell a little bit short in the end. Leicester going out this week to Roma, and West Ham unfortunately not being able to overcome some really bad red cards, an early red card, and some goals to Frankfurt, who, like we said, they're fans. Sometimes that pays off. But then the guy that I was going to bring up was Rafa Benitez during his first tenure at Liverpool, who was seen as a European Cup master, right?
Right.
Liverpool could finish 4th in the league, but they were going to get to the latter stages of the FA Cup, League Cup, and remember, he won a European Cup and made it to the finals of another, and I think he never made it less than the semifinals until he didn't qualify. He was seen as a guy who could put together these cup runs precisely for the reason that you said Von Bronckhorst was, where, his tactical ability in 2-game sets allowed him to set up everything perfectly. There is something to be said about that. But we also need to look at Van Bronckhorst's league form. What do you think he's going to take away from this season, being halfway in charge and recognizing that, in the end, Angie had a better league campaign than he did, despite the fact that he had those advantages going into the season?
Yeah, for sure. I think, and one of the things I want to point out here, you highlighted a little bit, I think Gio has that experience of playing in Europe, having played with Rangers. He understands the Scottish game. Angie has come from a completely different continent. He's never played in Europe, never played, didn't know when he came in the Scottish League. So I think there has been a large emphasis during his campaign to learn domestic football rather than trying to conquer Europe. Whereas Gio, I think, already has that understanding of Scottish football. And, he does have an understanding of Europe. And I think he's done, he clearly, the stats will show, obviously, he's done a good job of mastering it and playing these different teams. I think his biggest takeaway, is really going to be, I think, understanding how Angie's play style works. Angie has brought a new kind of an older version of Scottish football. Used to be much more attacking. The past decade, decade and a half, it's been much more defensive. Angie's taken it right back to where it used to be in terms of how it used to be played. And I think that's what's taken a lot of teams by surprise, including Rangers for a decent amount of that. So I think his biggest takeaway is going to be finding out how to master the Scottish kind of forward, progressive, attacking style of play and be able to utilize that domestically, and then also, continuing to have success in Europe.
So let's turn our attention to the champions elect. How'd they get it done?
How do we get it done?
Mm-hmm.
Oof, cunning, wile, skill. No, I think, I think, as I was just saying, I think Angie has really brought a very forward style of play in. And that's not to say, obviously, that other styles of play aren't effective in the Scottish game. I think just a lot of these teams are just not ready for that, type of play, especially defensively. Scotland has had a history of struggling in terms of defenders, having maybe not the most solid back line, and that includes both Celtic and Rangers. We're still struggling with that. We still don't have an out-and-out left back, for example, and we've been, struggling with different defenders over the years. It's been kind of a spinning door in terms of who we get in and who goes out. So, I think we finally at this point in time have a solid back line that can play with a midfield that wants to move forward. And, we have people like CCV, who's not just been a center back, but he's been playing in the midfield. He'll get up when he has to. Starfelt, we've brought in some really, really amazing transfers, and I do have to give it to the backroom staff who we've been able to bring in, especially during a time when we've overturned our first team players. We brought in some real quality, I think, for, really, really good value. And I'm hoping that continues next season, because I tell you, if Rangers do win and they get that check, I can guarantee that they're going to be offloading some people for money and bringing some people in for some decent money. So, well, after they pay all their debts to the Queen, of course. After that, though, they'll be bringing in, I think, some people.
Well, let's talk about Cameron Carter-Vickers. He has been thrown the USA lifeline that we always asked for, and probably in more of a way than we thought he was going to get, but in the least fortunate way possible. Miles Robinson, the incumbent starter at the left side of the center backs, went down with an Achilles injury this weekend. So it looks very doubtful that he will be back up and running, rehab, match ready by the time the World Cup rolls around in November. He will not feature again in the MLS season, which means that by the time he got there, he won't have played, and he might have had, like one or two fixtures to get up and running. But Cameron Carter-Vickers, it was previously announced that he would be, has been invited back to the U.S. camp at the end of the season, and now we'll have a chance to compete with the likes of Aaron Long, Walker Zimmerman, to get that starting position at right back. One of the big issues with him from his time, he started a lot during the Dave Starrican era. He kind of fell by the wayside. One of the big issues was that he wasn't making a big enough impact at club level. He wasn't consistent enough. He wasn't getting enough games. Can you say to USA fans, based on your watching him at club level as much as you have over the last 6-8 months, what can you tell us? What are we getting in this iteration of Cameron Carter-Vickers, who's coming into the U.S. men's national team now?
So I'll be pretty straightforward with this. We brought in, people like Kyogo, who are, I think he's still the top goal scorer in the SPFL, or no, not anymore, but one of the top goal scorers. Leo Labada, we brought him, one of the top goal scorers. Jota, one of the top goal scorers. Still to this day, the best pickup that we've made is Cameron Carter-Vickers. He's absolutely seamless in terms of defense. He's a brick house. I'll be honest. In terms of a center back, if you need something stopped, he is your man. I really think he has been our best pickup, by a decent mile. And as I say, we've had some really, really good pickups. I think if people were to see him a few years ago, comparative to now, they see that progress. And I think that should really excite USA fans if he was to play. He's fantastic at, moving up when he has to. He's got a number of headers to his name already. He's beating Ryan Kent, who's an attacking midfield player, or winger even sometimes, in terms of number of goals. But his stopping percentages, last time I looked at them, it was like successful tackles was like 85% or something like that, which it's just absolutely phenomenal for being a starting player, especially in an aggressive league like the Scottish Premier League. So, I think for USA fans, I think I'd be very, very excited. Still decently young,
24.
Yeah, 24, decently young, continuing to improve. As I say, the improvement that he's made over the past few years, I can only imagine how much more he's going to improve. He keeps his current standard for the next 2 years. So, US, you guys are lucky to have him. I'll put it that way. You guys are very, very lucky to have him in your back pocket if you need to play him, for sure.
I'm so hoping right now that they're able to get this negotiation over the line. It seems like it's coming to a head where the $10 million or $6 million plus add-ons is going to be negotiated with Spurs, and they'll get him. And the reason being, I want him right now continuing to start games and play in the form and have the Champions League group stage exposure that he's going to get. And we know for a fact that if he's playing for Celtic, he's going to be starting. He's going to be probably, if not the first, one of the first names on the team sheet week in, week out, playing in a league that has its quirks, but still has its challenges. Whereas the other rumored destination is like Newcastle, and I just don't need him to be back in the Premier League, drop to somebody's bench, loaned out, things like that. Again, I need him playing games. It's so unfortunate for Miles Robinson that he had to go out this way and potentially lose out on a mega $1 million transfer fee. But we can easily see this as his loss, his unfortunate injury, could be a gain for the U.S. men, for Cameron Carter-Vickers, and adding that international experience for Cameron Carter-Vickers could only be a net positive for Celtic, as that'll keep him in action, hopefully healthy action over the summer. So moving in the other direction. Looks like Dundee are down despite their win today.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. No, I was actually just looking at the table a little bit ago. Dundee is, I think, they're done. Dundee is done. St. Johnstone, I think the bottom, Aberdeen is. I mean, they're still 8 points ahead, but man, that I don't think I've seen Aberdeen place that low in near history. That this has been a seriously bad season for them. And we've talked about this before, change in management multiple times in the season. Clearly backroom staff issues with the players and staff, things like that. So very unfortunate for Aberdeen. And I think something I probably won't see, if they're able to recover next season, for a while. But yeah, Dundee is out. St. Johnstone, I think, probably are going to follow in their footsteps. And I think Aberdeen is just going to hang in there just barely.
Instead, and Cam, insofar as the margins being so thin for the teams outside of Rangers and Celtic, when I talk about that, I mean, it doesn't take too much to the margins in between something being successful and failing can be, one player coming in who doesn't quite fit, and that can just send you free falling in Scotland. Mm-hmm. In that way, it bears a lot of resemblance to MLS and makes it harder to handicap the Scottish League than it might other leagues.
Sure.
I will say that the one thing I do like about Scotland is that game. I compare it to a NASCAR dirt track race. Normally, because at least by this point in time, the pitches up in Scotland, no offense, Cam, but they do get a bit dodgy.
They do, yeah.
It's basically one blade of grass and a whole lot of green spray paint. and the guy's racing up and down at full speed, and it looks like the soccer equivalent of a NASCAR dirt track race.
A lot of the majority of your season takes place when it's sunlight about 4 hours a day in Scotland too.
And that's why I think I'm like, it is one of the most fun leagues to watch, because these games tend to be up and down, played at pace on these sort of dodgy pitches, and you feel for them. But it just doesn't work. But you hope that it and you can just see stuff, but the margins are so thin. And then you look at a team like Aberdeen, who clearly had designs on Europe at the start of the season, and it just went all haywire. And you got to look, and it's like, now we've got to dig through the needle in the haystack to see that one transfer, that one move, that one decision that didn't go well, and just sent everything spiraling.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how they progress forward. I mean, Scott Brown, as we know, was there for a little bit, and really stepped into that role as captain manager, assistant manager type role. And he was, after a few months, he said he was done. He said he couldn't do it there anymore. It was just such a mess internally amongst the players and staff. I think Aberdeen's going to have to really go through at the end of the season a period where they say, we need to get new management, and then who do we empty here? Because I think you're absolutely right. There's definitely some issues amongst the players, between each other and between the staff. And, I'm not putting it all on one person, but there is usually one person that is the biggest problem. And I think they're going to have to look at who that is and really clean Aberdeen up, because you're right. They were looking at Europe at the beginning of the season. They were trying to, at least make Conference League. And here they are now, sitting in 10th place. So.
Now, on the other side, if we go a league down, we've already established who's coming up. but the dream is still alive. In fact, the dream is probably in better shape after today than it has been. Arbroath and Inverness Cali Thistle drew 0-0. It was actually, I felt Arbroath who had some of the better chances in the game, and their manager said, you know, if you had given me the opportunity to go home with 0-0 still alive in this, I would have taken it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. I think I caught the highlights of it, and I thought it was a good game. It did look like Arbroath ran that game. And as you say, coming in to, you know, play Arbroath when they're at home, 0-0 aggregate, with the opportunity to get into the Scottish Premier League. I think the home fans, I think it's going to be another situation where Scottish home fans are going to really make their club successful. The fans behind Arbroath are obviously, I mean, they're fully on board. They've turned into a bit of a wild bunch, which I don't think I ever would have said that about Arbroath fans in the past. But I think they're going into this with a massive advantage. And I mean, Inverness Cali Thistle has been in the Scottish Premier League God knows how many times. So they're a decent team. So I think you're absolutely right to be able to tie with them and then bring that game home. Wonder if it's going to be like Rangers, you know. I wonder if they kind of expected, you know, let's try keep the scoring low away and then bring it home and try to knock it out of the park. So
I wonder how many tickets have actually been sold for the game. I know the Browns is technically only 800, but I don't know. Like, on the one hand, you wonder how many fans can Arbroath actually generate, and how many people in Scotland might just be there to see if this could possibly happen.
I wouldn't. So this is a use case that's happened in the past with, I believe it was it Ross? No, it wasn't Ross. There was another team that made it up into the Scottish Premier League, and they only had about 3,000 as the seats. As we talked about, you need 6,000 to play in the SPL. And what they'll actually do is they'll put temporary seating up.
I'm not. I'm just wondering how many tickets can you actually sell?
I think they're going to sell out. I do.
It's not hard to sell out 800.
Well, it's also hard. You don't know the size of towns in Scotland, my friend. There are towns that are like the capitals of their little regions, and there's like 200 people, and everybody knows each other's names.
I mean, I think they can sell out 800. I just wonder, like, all right, gentlemen, what's the over-under on the attendance at that game? I'm gonna go with 5,000. What you got?
I'm gonna say over because of the magnitude of the game.
All right, do you want to put a number on that?
I'll go Price is Right style, 5,001.
5,001.
Wow.
All right, Cam, what you got?
Oh man, it's such a small place, but I think I'm gonna go 5,002.
All right, so we're all going with I set the over under at 5,000. We're all going over, and we'll see what it is. This game to be played on Friday for the right to most likely play. I'm sorry, for the right to most likely play St. Livingston. Or is it St. Johnston?
St. Johnston.
Sorry, St. Johnston. For the right to play St. Johnston, and to have a healthy break in doing it, because if I'm not mistaken, there are still 2 rounds left in the SPL, whereas this game will be over on Friday, giving them about 2 full weeks, about almost 10 days before they would go into this. It's a home and home, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
This home and home. All right, my good friend. It was great to talk to you. We will be back next week, hopefully with more of the haps in the land of enchantment, to recap what happens this weekend to set up the Europa League, start setting up the Europa League finals, and of course, most importantly, to figure out what happens with Arbroath and whether or not the dream is still alive.
Can't wait. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Have a great rest of your evening.
So I did find out one thing, Stead. the Arbroath jerseys look eerily similar to the Barca jerseys. I'm not 100%.
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, that's funny.
I'm not 100% sure how I feel about that. I'll still get one.
Yeah.
Because now I have the added thing of everybody, oh, that's a weird looking Barca jersey. It's not. It's Arbroath.
So I know we're running a little behind schedule, but you want to give me a chance to talk North London Derby, or do we want to get to that?
We're going to bring in. No, we're not running behind schedule. We're right on schedule.
Oh, we shifted. That's right. Okay.
Because G and Sean couldn't make it.
Also, we need to give our good friend Larry a shout. He suddenly got hit with the sickness of being a parent, and next thing you know, your kids get sick and you get sick, and next thing you know, you're laid out. We've been there, of course. Mike, as an educator, you know that all too well, where you come in contact with some new kids and next thing you know, you're sick. So Larry, hope you listen to this tomorrow. Hope you feel better soon. We'll get you back next week so we can all complain about you guys signing Erling Haaland.
Yes. So actually, I did bring on Matt a little bit early because we don't
looking clean, Matt. Looking clean, looking real clean.
Also wearing black because it's Man United's funeral.
Yeah, it's exactly what it was. That's actually exactly why I wore black. So funny.
But we wanted to talk about. I brought him on because we do need to talk about the North London Derby, and it was easier to do it this way than to leave you just by yourself, Stead. So, the rescheduled North London Derby coming up this week. Arsenal 1 win away from clinching what at the beginning of the season was probably considered unlikely in the Champions League.
Mm-hmm.
They have been the beneficiaries of some really poor play by teams around them.
Yes, absolutely.
But to be in a position to capitalize on poor play by the teams around you, you have to be somewhat decent yourself.
Yes, and that's often not an Arsenal thing. I mean, how many times have we seen, especially in recent history, when Arsenal has an opportunity to take some much needed points and advance the table due to someone else's detriment, had not done it. So the fact that they have, especially after that stretch of really, really, really poor form where they lost 3 straight against mid and lower level teams, lets you know that there is something special with Mikel Arteta when it comes to simply not allowing a squad to falter to the point where they would let that derail them and would be unable to be successful. So that is good. The fact that this is now not the most pivotal game of the season anymore, that is really, really helpful. I did not want to go into this game as an Arsenal fan saying that I'm sorry, you're distracting me. I'm making my point. Will, I can kick you out on the host. Let me just say this. For making my point, the fact that this game is not the most important game anymore, it makes it much easier to swallow as an Arsenal fan. But to say this, a team that has Son Heung-min is someone that you need to be worried about at all times. I know everyone loves Harry Kane, including Spurs fans, and I don't understand why they don't think. If I had to pick one of those 2 players right now, I might pick Son. I think I've said he's world class, but I don't think Harry Kane is going to be Harry Kane without him with him. Whereas we've seen Son Heung-min perform better without Harry Kane on the field. He is a phenomenal player, absolute phenomenal player. And I think he'll be on the team of the year. He'll probably be the only player that's not a City or Liverpool player that will be on that team of the year. He's the only one who deserves it as far as I'm concerned. So that's the only part of it that concerns me. But the best thing about this is that Arsenal can afford to lose this game and have it not end their season. And if they lose this game, if they get 6 of the next 9 points, if they get 6 of them, they're going to get 4th spot. So that is, and granted, you're playing Newcastle and Everton, which right now, as I've said before, no one wants to play Newcastle. No one does. Even though City just thumped them, you still don't want to play Newcastle. And Everton, of course, you don't want to play a team fighting for their lives. But it's at least the pressure is not on you against your North London rival. You don't want that game to be the one that keeps you from winning. So it's a big one. It's a big one. A draw, I'll take a draw. But I'm not one that's just going to dump on Spurs because I'm an Arsenal fan. I do think they're a quality squad. They're actually a better squad than Arsenal when it comes to, on paper, they are. They've just had some issues this year with winning games. So yeah, if and I said it before, and I'm going to stick to it too. If we finish 5th and get Europa League, I won't be disappointed. I won't.
All right, go for it, Matt.
So I was gonna say, like you were saying that it's just not like it's not that big of a game, but like from momentum reasons, like
I said it was not the most pivotal game. That's what I said.
Okay.
That's what I said. Yeah.
Okay, because I was like, I feel like I would be worried that like if Spurs would win, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if Spurs would win, like I feel like that gives them momentum because then they're only 1 point back, like behind you.
Right, but would you rather be 1 point back or 1 point up?
No, that's true, and like also too,
that's
I think it's a little different too because where you guys are, especially now, it's like Chelsea's form has been garbage. Like it's been awful. Like I know a lot of them.
A possibility.
Yeah,
Third is a possibility.
And again, so you could actually argue even for Spurs, like there's also another spot up for grabs. Like I think
I didn't mention that. You're right about that.
Yeah. I'm like kind of disproving my question to you as I'm speaking. Like I was just wondering if you thought that, you know, do you want Arsenal to come out, you know, I don't want to say like playing for a draw, but kind of shoring up shop and not like making sure anything gets off the rails, because at the end of the day, like a draw is super beneficial for you. You keep a 4 point gap, and, you know, with Chelsea's form, you might actually even gain a point on them.
Yeah, I'll say this: Arsenal should never play for draws because whenever they do, they lose 3-0.
Yeah,
never play for a draw. Arsenal does not. Don't do that. That never, ever works. It never works. The only team I've seen successfully play for a draw are Jose Mourinho coach teams. That's the only team I've ever seen been able to do that. I do not think that that is a wise decision in the least bit. And I think if what Arsenal needs to do is to go out there and score early, and then don't back off. Do not back off. This Spurs team has shown that they will wilt if the soccer gods are not going their way. They will wilt. And you're seeing an Arsenal team that has shown resilience that they have not shown since pre-2010. You're seeing it this year. And all the Arsenal haters can say what they want. They're winning ugly games and they never win ugly games.
Yeah,
so it's go out there and stop it. What my point is that it's comforting to know that if you go out there and you play that way and you lose 1-0, your season's not over. You still have a legitimate chance. And actually, you're still in control of your own destiny. Even if you go out and lose this game, you're still in control of your own destiny. What I don't want to see, though, is a team that goes out there and does what they play for a draw. Because I feel like if you go out there and play for a draw and you lose, then you are demoralized. Then you're going to sit there because you're not putting your talent, you're not putting your best talent forward. You're not going forward. And I know as a player, what player enjoys playing that way?
No one does. No
one does. It's the worst way to play, especially when you got a bunch of kids.
Yeah.
You got a bunch of kids. You got a bunch of 23-year-olds. Let them go play. Let them run around and play. Because even if Arsenal don't win this game, if they don't finish top 4, whatever like that, if there's one team that is in the top 6 right now that has nothing to lose, it's Arsenal. Arsenal has nothing to lose right now. Nothing.
All right. I am going to welcome in the Prince of Darkness himself.
I had to shit on him. Come on, he hasn't been around. I was like, oh, here he goes. I got to shit on him.
To his credit, I did not.
428. Go for another 428.
I wasn't like look. It's Willie. He's the prince. British Willie. He's the Prince of Darkness himself. I'm sure that if there's a parade, he can rain on it. Unless it's a Liverpool parade.
No, it still rains.
Go for it, Will. Rain on Stead's parade.
I'm ready.
I mean, I agree with you completely. I mean, It's going to be a tough game playing Spurs. Liverpool found that out on Saturday.
Mhm.
It's a tough game to play Spurs, especially when they're in the mood to do something.
Mhm.
But the nice thing about playing Spurs is they're not often in the mood to do something. So, two mediocre teams can have at it and hammer at each other, and it will be an interesting game for someone to watch. I am certain of that because, it is a derby, and there are young players, and so that will make it heated. And if Spurs decides to come out and play like they played for the first 20 minutes against Liverpool, Arsenal has a very good chance of winning. But if Spurs likes to play how they played for the last really 70 minutes against Liverpool, and Arsenal's in for a little bit of a tough time, because once Spurs found their feet in that game, it was, let's just say, I was glad it was happening at 5:45 in the morning so I could go to sleep, because Liverpool were not really able to break them down, and that's not something that you want to see if you're coming up against a team next. But I think that I agree with Stead's assessment of it. It's not the most pivotal game in Arsenal's season. It's an excellent position for Arsenal to be in. And if they do mess up and they lose 1-0, if they go out and play the game to win it, then they're going to be in a good position to finish the season with 2 games left.
One thing that I will say, though, Stead, about this is a win in the North London derby all but assures and all but brings about St. Totteringham's Day.
Oh, it does. If we win, that's it. If we win, that's it. That's it.
So you have,
I don't think it's 100% official, but no, I think it is. We win, that's it.
No,
That's it. We win, that's it. That's it. Also, if we win, we're secure top 4 and St. Totteringham's Day. And
it brings about St. Totteringham's Day.
And it makes Chelsea very, very nervous. It makes Chelsea very, very nervous. And Matt, one thing I wanted to say, because you brought up Chelsea, and I went on this long trail of thought, and I didn't once bring up Chelsea. I don't think I've ever, at least in the past couple of years, have actually looked up in the table at a team that was in Champions League qualification spot and says, "Yeah, we got a shot to catch them." Don't think I've done that. So my sole habit is to look down unless you're in 4th place. Just you look for 4th place, and if you're in 4th place, just look down. I mean, I don't know how many times, and at least 3 or 4 times where we've gone to the last 2 games of the season and you had to win to secure 4th place. So, and every time Arsenal didn't finish 4th, it was because the teams that were around them just decided to have a royal shit the bed moment the last 2 weeks of the season. We're like, oh shit, we got 3rd. It doesn't really happen that often. So yeah, I didn't even think of look at Chelsea, because you're right, their form has been horrendous. They've gotten 5 of the last 15 points. I mean, they don't look good at all. So it'll be pretty funny if Arsenal finish 3rd. I'll do this show shirtless. I mean, the only reason why I thought that too, because Will's here and he's the first one to strip. So I was like, I'll do some push-ups beforehand and I'll sit up here.
I would love to just acknowledge how Will subtly shit on both teams.
Oh no, I got it. But we weren't doing the show, and Liverpool was finishing 7th for 2 years in a row. We weren't doing the show yet, so we didn't have a chance to shit on Liverpool.
I lived through that with my friends. It's fine.
That's true. And I don't think we could have. I think you were still in high school then, Will. That was a while ago.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
I just want to say, once again, in true British Will fashion, he manages, while being ever so sweet and with the platitudes, to throw shade and shit on both teams, just ever so subtly. And that is why we call him the Prince of Darkness. Now, Matt, we're gonna have a conversation that I know that Will wants to be part of, because there's nothing more that he loves. There are 2 things that he loves. One is Liverpool winning, and 2 is Man United sucking. And boy, has Man United sucked.
I'm on Team Will with that. That's probably why my comments on Spurs are so tame, because I don't really care about Spurs, but I love seeing Man United like this.
I mean, let's get it out of the way. We suck. We know we do. We are bad. At this point in time, the horse is dead. It is beaten. Take it out behind the yard and shoot it. I do want to give them
times.
Yeah, and Brighton did it 4. So how about this, Will? You weren't able to beat us by more than Brighton beat us last time. So that's showing that's showing how much Liverpool sucks right now. They didn't beat us by a bigger scoreline than Brighton did. We lost by Brighton more than they beat us by. All right. So I digress. I was saying to Stead earlier, Matt, I'm actually concerned that, I don't think next year is going to be discernibly better stats wise than this year. I think like next year, when you look at all of the rot, all of the bad, all of everything that is left in that team, when it was Ferguson and Moyes, you could point to, this was a team that the year before had won the Premier League. There were still some quality players in there that were at or near the peak of their form. All they needed was good leadership and LVG came in, and it was a 1-year blip. Outside of Anthony Elanga, there's nothing to be excited about in Man United's lineup this year. And when you look at who would need to go, how the club needs to be recycled. Honestly, I look at it and I say, I think a better season next year. Forget about Champions League. I want to stay closer to, can we finish top half of the table and not be closer to relegation than to any European spot?
Yeah. I mean, I just, first of all, want to say, everyone's talking about how they have 2-3 games left. I'm just happy we have 1 game left.
I only have to suffer through that once.
Honestly, way back when Rooney did Monday Night Football for Sky Sports, and he was talking about what he would be thinking if he was in that locker room right now, and he basically said, I just want the season to end. Even though they technically were in the hunt of top 4, he was honestly, even if they made Champions League, they know that where they are right now, they're not going to be serious contenders. And so he was I'd just rather end the season now. And you could, as soon as he said that, I started really looking at body language and the way players are even playing. And everyone just wants this season to wrap up. All the players that, are done next year or leaving next year, you can already tell they're done. And they just want to move on. And yeah, it just kind of shows all the holes that are in our team. And, some players you can tell that are they're trying, but it's just a magnified version of what we've seen all year, where it's just really individuals trying to spark some moment of magic. And it's just, after every single goal against Brighton, it was the same thing of trying to force an issue, trying to get something quick, a goal here, there, and it just all fell apart. I mean, it's really kind of basic, high school soccer kind of stuff. It's this team is so done. They clearly don't care about the manager who's leaving now. I just really want to see a cohesive unit. I'm never the person who says, I've never been this person who's been I want to just see good soccer instead of the results. I will take a 1-0 win and shitbagging it for 85 minutes, Jose Mourinho style, and winning trophies over playing exciting football, but losing, 4-3 or tying 3-3 every game. I would hate that. It
Those
would
are
be so
fans of
frustrating.
teams that never win anything anyway.
Yeah,
I agree
or-
with you 100%.
It's
I agree
just
with you
so-
100%.
It's such a stupid sentiment. It's also very short-sighted. It's like, yeah, you're feeling that now, but like 5 results in a row where you're drawing to like Brighton 4-4, which would actually now look like a great result. Like that, and then tying Villa 2-2. After a while, you get pissed because you'd be like, "We're United. We should be beating these teams." Yeah, I mean, I told you, Mike, like I'm just so. This is the first time where I've ever been. I think it's honestly the Prince of Darkness. It's rubbed on me the wrong way. I hung out with him too much, playing soccer when he was here. I am so pessimistic about the team now. Like, it's more. I'm taking the advantage. I'm sure a lot of Arsenal fans learn to do. It's like, look at the negative first, and if the positive happens, great. I'm happy that I was wrong, but I'd rather make a negative prediction about what's going to happen with the team versus, what I used to do. I was like, there's little bits of gold here, and like potentially, good moments here. I mean, I am fighting a bit of, you're talking about that one blip. It's like this team finished second last season. Like, that's unbelievable to me. Like, the fact that we were second place and we were thinking, if we get X, Y, and Z right, could we be title challengers? And not only was that proved wrong, it's like we're at a point where I think we're worse off when we were with Moyes. And if we're in the top 4 conversation at all next year, you have to think that that's a success. Like, let alone of what Arsenal's doing this year. I think, coming into the season, we should be thinking what Arsenal was coming into the season. Can we just actually get a good run of results? Can we start showing progress in terms of a plan? Because we need that with Ten Hag. Like, my biggest fear is that he comes in and we still have a bunch of self-centered players in this locker room. And if they don't take to this system and he doesn't get the results, like, are we going to be committed to keeping him, for multiple years?
I think, and that's the other thing. I think you could easily make a argument that rather than his own failing, the players might bring him down next year, and we would end up getting rid of a manager who could actually do good things to us, because it's easier to fire a manager than it is to cut 9 players.
Yeah.
And they, without a doubt, need to stick with Ten Hag through the season, let him clear that weight out, because there are a lot of players who are more interested in the name on the back of the jersey than they are what's the club crest on the front of the jersey. They're more, and by that, I mean, I don't care whether you are a Man United. I want you to play for the team. I want you to play for the guys that you're playing with.
Yeah.
Right. And that was what we played. And that was what I was praising Cristiano Ronaldo about last week. And I'll continue to praise him about it. But, you need to be willing to sacrifice to play for the guys next to you. And I haven't seen enough about that. Hopefully he gives them stuff. The teamwork, the platform. He said he wants to build a team. It's all going to be about teamwork. Maybe not necessarily the club, but the team, the collection of 22, 25 guys that you're playing with, more so than what's on the back of the jersey. And that's what we see in teams like Arsenal. That's what made Liverpool successful. So I agree wholeheartedly. I'm actually not going to give the Prince of Darkness a chance to chime in, because there is nothing that I want to hear him say.
2014, 2015, 2015, 2016, Liverpool. A direct analogy, possibly.
No, I actually think, I think it's a direct analogy. I think, though, that
possibly, if Ten Hag does
what Klopp does, but the difference is that Ten Hag has to do not only what Klopp did, but also what what's his name did. Why did I just Rodgers did as well? Because remember, Rodgers got them to second in the league within a bad Crystal Palace game of winning the league, then had a bad half a season, which got him fired. And then
He had a bad 2 seasons.
I thought it was the next season, but
The next season was awful. They sold Suarez. Next season was absolutely atrocious. And then the next half season was absolutely abysmal. And there was
I thought it was the next season immediately after that. But
he had a full season, and he spent 120 odd million pounds on 15 pieces of wood. And then Jurgen Klopp came in, and he gave away the pieces of wood and brought in good players.
It's amazing how everything relates back to Liverpool. All right, we're going to welcome in our good friend Matt Kowalski, but for one reason, and before we get on to talk of all things great Liverpool, and geez, there's 2 freaking Liverpool jerseys on my show. I never thought that was going to happen. I hate my life right now. My whole entire goal in life was to make sure there was only ever one Liverpool fan, but now there's 2. FML. Before we get into all things Liverpool related, I want to talk about 2 of the biggest announcements that happened today. Larry, the insurance guy, was ill and wasn't able to talk about this, but Man City announced the signing of Erling Haaland. And from a completely non-playing aspect of it, EA Sports and FIFA announced the end of their video game partnership. As somebody who is a dedicated FIFA player, I believe the second one is the most important, but we will start with the first. Anybody shocked by the announcement that Haaland was going to City?
Shocked? No. Upset? Yes.
Agreed. I completely agree.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, I'll tell you what. I was a little bothered by it because it's a club across town, but honestly, I don't think that even if he had signed for us right now, we're not one Erling Haaland away from being competitive. So he'd have been wasting 2 to 3 years of his career. We need to be embarrassed as to why he didn't sign with us, not and the circumstances that led to us, and fix those more than the fact that we didn't do whatever. Right. Stead, give me your thoughts on this move.
It was expected. You knew that only about 2 or 3 teams could afford to pay him anyway. And I was just hoping he would stay out of the Premier League so we wouldn't have to deal with him. And my biggest thing, though, is we can't forget he was out half the year with injuries. So hopefully he heals up from it. And, just for his sake, but, the guy's on £400,000 a week now. He's going to be the highest paid player in the Premier League. And, it's just another situation where you're looking at the rich continuing to get richer, but it's it was expected. You knew he was going to go to one of those big clubs, and seeing as how Real Madrid is solely focused on Kylian Mbappe, which I understand because technically I guess he's still kind of like a bigger star than Haaland is at this current moment. And but I believe Haaland's got family connections there, and it's kind of like I think he was born in Leeds, and so it's not that surprising. I think it's just for those of us who were fans of teams that were that have a much bigger history in English football as far as from a championship perspective is concerned, to see these big, bright, young players go to Man City, it just stings a little bit. It just does. And I'll admit it. I mean, I'm kind of hating a little bit. I am. And I think also because knowing that the club that I support will probably never get a player of that caliber is just another thing that makes you kind of go like, ugh, it's and I will say this: the Dortmund put out not a press release, but a Dortmund representative stated that when you're competing with actual states for players, there's not really much you can do about it. So I mean, you just got to shrug your shoulders and hope that your teams figure out how to handle a guy who's 6'4", who has very, very, very high top end speed, who can control the ball and is quite dominant in the air. That's basically all you can do.
Well, would you have been willing to give 400,000 a week to any player?
No. That's the big issue with the Salah contract right now. Salah is better than Haaland, at least in my eyes, and I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say that. I know that some people might disagree, but I wouldn't say that saying the statement Salah is better than Haaland is like too much of a suspension of disbelief, even if you don't believe it. They're around the same, and Liverpool won't pay him 400,000 a week. They won't even pay him 300,000 a week, which is why there was such a big sticking point with the contract. And mostly that was the agent, that wasn't really Salah. But, there's a big sticking point there, and it's been resolved. But if you're paying that much a week to a player, that player had better be perfect. And what I mean by perfect is breaking goal scoring records every season, breaking assist records, and doing everything that player is designed to do. And Haaland very much could do that. I don't doubt he could. I just doubt the City implementation of Haaland, because we see it right now with Riyad Mahrez. We see it with the entire City team. They rotate like crazy to save players, but they don't play every week. Their players are all on above 250, 300,000 a week, and they're sitting on the bench. And so do I think that I'll see Erling Haaland playing against Brentford? No. But do I think I see Erling Haaland playing against Liverpool? Yeah, probably. Arsenal? Maybe not. It really depends on the caprices of Pep Guardiola. And he is an excellent squad rotation manager during a season, which is why it's difficult to beat Manchester City. But do I think that I would want my team to be paying someone £400,000 a week to sit on the bench for, 10 weeks out of the season? No.
All right, Matt.
I gotta say, I just don't agree with that. I mean, maybe it's just different, but the clubs have the money. Like, I just don't, I never really think it impacts like it as much as we think it does. I mean, especially for City, like they have unlimited funds. Like if I'm putting myself in their shoes, like sure, with like £400,000 a week, like they're banking on the future. It is weird though that he has a release clause after 2 years, and it was put in his player's side, like press release said that he still dreams of Spain. So like that is the little kind of question mark about it of, well, like, are you like, you can argue the £400,000 of like, well, yeah, we're betting on the future. Like, with him, he'll put us over top and we'll win Champions League, and that'll be an investment, and we'll start, expanding our fan base and bringing in more money because we have a young star on our team, one of the faces of the future, and that investment will work out for us. But if he leaves in 2 years and then becomes, it's something similar to what happened kind of like with Ronaldo with United, where it's like, yeah, he was considered the best player in the world, and then he went to Madrid and found this insane other level. It's like, is City really winning that, I guess that purchase if they don't win that Champions League in the next 2 years?
Well, I
yeah.
think that's what they're betting on, and it's not there are two things going on. Number one, he was willing to lower his salary demand by £100,000 a week, which is not a small amount of money. I mean, that's £500,000 that's £500,000 a year that he was willing to take off the table per year to get that release cost put in.
Yeah.
And that 2-year release clause times perfectly with the prospective end of Pep at Man City. Mm-hmm. I think he wanted to see, like, I'll play for Pep. I want to play for Pep. I want to play for Man City, and I want to play for Pep. If it doesn't go right here, I'm leaving. I'm going where I need to go. And again, if I'm going to make that sort of investment, I'm very reluctant to put an affordable release clause in there. Like, I know Spanish contracts have to have one, right? It's a law in Spain that every contract has to have a release clause. It's a labor law. That's why they did that. And at the time that they did that with Neymar, Barca had set it at a level that they thought was prohibitive to any other club. They didn't realize that, PSG, Man City would actually do that. And the funny thing is, everybody immediately went back, rewrote release clauses for like billion-dollar release costs, right? It seems to me like in their emphasis, and I don't know, did anybody get the exact number on the second-year release clause? If he's highlighting it, it's probably affordable and probably more than I would be willing to let go. And that's just me. All right, before we wrap this up and move on, Matt, I wanted to get your thoughts on all things Erling Haaland.
Pretty much everything that has already been said. The fact that it is a release clause after 2 years, the fact that he still seems to be pining for Spain is a little strange. But as you said, the timing works out. 2 years, Pep's gone. 2 years, maybe Karim Benzema's gone at Real Madrid, the natural successor. From the Liverpool perspective, I'll just piggyback on Will. No, I mean, the dreams of bringing him in died 2 years ago with the, contract demands. It's not the way that we do business. It is a little strange, though, that we bought the wrong RB Salzburg guy 3 years ago. We really should have gone for the big Norwegian as opposed to the Japanese Swiss Army knife. But hey, you get some right, you get some wrong.
All right. And before we get on to all things actual Liverpool, Stead, I thought this was a big deal. After 30 years, EA Sports breaks its deal with FIFA. At first, I was extremely concerned. No more FIFA license other than that. But what I didn't realize is and I should have taken this into account, because of the nature of soccer, not only does EA Sports have to carry licenses with each of the leagues, they also have to carry licenses with specific teams, stadiums, things like that. In order to put each brand of FIFA together, they carry over 300 individual licenses within that game. So they have a license with the Premier League, but then they have to also have an individual license with teams like Manchester United, Man City, Liverpool. We know this is the case because they have a license with Serie A, but they don't have an individual license with Juventus, which is why they've been Piemonte Cassia. They have a license
for all the Calico or
Calcio. It's
Calcio.
Calcio.
All right. They have a license for all the stadiums in La Liga except for Camp Nou. Right. So apparently FIFA wanted the equivalent of $2.5 billion for the next 10 years of rights for the World Cup, the Men's World Cup, the Women's World Cup, and the 4 letters FIFA. And on top of that, they wanted a certain amount of creative control and certain things that EA Sports wasn't going to. So initially, I'm not going to lie, Jim, I was panicked because, FIFA is one of those games that I buy, I play regularly. I think that it has been as much responsible as any cable network for the global growth of soccer. I talk to so many people right now who play that game, who know players, who talk about this player, this team, that team, that you wouldn't know otherwise, because these are teams that nobody would have heard about unless they played with FIFA. As long as I can still get that, I don't care if it's called EAFC, FIFA,
PES, Pro Evolution Soccer, yeah.
Right.
you could call it dirt, and I'd still play the game. I want to get y'all's thoughts on this breakup, because in a way, I mean, initially I felt like it was EA breaking up with the NFL and canceling Madden. Now I realize it may not be that serious at all.
Yeah, I think FIFA thinks that they're more important than they really are in that respect. I mean, I don't think that they realize the number of countries that have a lot of wealth that don't follow soccer. And their avenue to the game was through that video game. Look, that's where I heard of Fenerbahce. That's where I heard of Galatasaray. That's where I heard of Panathinaikos. That's where I heard of Olympiacos. That's where I heard of all of those teams, was through that game. And I started playing FIFA back in the mid 90s, early 90s, I'd say, when I was in high school. So it is really a situation, I think, of somebody thinking that they're more important than they really are. And I think EA was able to realize that working with FIFA is not like working with the NBA for a similar type game, because the NBA is the NBA is the NBA. Madden is Madden is Madden. It's kind of one game, and it's not like you're going to be playing Euro League on on your PlayStation. You're not. So the game is going to continue because of exactly what you were stating, because of all the different licenses that they have. And I'm going to let Chelsea mic in, because I'm sure you might want to jump in on this conversation as well. It is. EA's also gotten a lot of heat lately. I think a lot of gamers have just been really disappointed with them overall, and rightfully so. But it's, and
Their
also I think
gameplay hasn't been.
It hasn't been great. I mean, EA's been recycling games and throwing a new year on it, and then all of a sudden charging you $60 to play the next edition, and they haven't really improved the quality of play. But I also think that you don't play that game to play the World Cup. You don't. The worst thing for the World, this is it. The worst thing. In the United States, the worst thing that ever happened to the World Cup was playing club games week in and week out, because the World Cup was our avenue to the game. That was it. That was all we had, was the World Cup. And you get so many fringe fans who say they watch World Cup. Now you have people who actually legitimately like soccer, don't even really know what's going on. I mean, the national game has lost extraordinary levels of coverage on this side of the world, primarily because of the exposure we finally have to the best players in the world. And for FIFA to say, okay, well, then we're going to just, EA can easily say, we'll just take that part of the game out. They're still going to buy it, because now these kids aren't buying US jerseys. They're buying Liverpool jerseys. And they're buying Manchester United jerseys. That's what they're buying. US jerseys are not flying off the shelf anymore.
I played that game for years when they didn't have the rights to the UEFA competitions.
So did
People played that game for years when they didn't have the rights to the South American competitions. And it was mattered more to me to be able to win whatever the European Cup, whatever they called it. They'll still put the national tournaments in there, because I don't think, unless you tell me that FIFA has the rights to the individual national teams.
No.
They don't. EA has to negotiate with the national federation.
We'll get Bolivia in there.
Yeah. So, if FIFA wants to go out and negotiate with all 250 some odd national federations and say, we're going to throw you a percentage each, they can still have a world tournament. And it doesn't also, because FIFA doesn't run the Euros, the Gold Cup, or anything like that, they can still have the other international tour, so they can still have that feature in the game, which they have had for quite a number of times. But as somebody who plays it regularly, like, it was actually more of an issue to do that than it wasn't. Like, I can't remember the last time I played a quote unquote World Cup game when I was playing FIFA. Like, you normally simulate all of those. Unless you get really pissed and it's like, why do I keep losing with Brazil in the semifinals of the World Cup? And I'm really, really bored today, so I'm going to do that. And I don't disagree, gentlemen, when the guy who directs EA said, you know, for 3 out of every 4 years, all they were giving us was 4 letters.
I mean, that's what all they're giving them every year.
I mean,
because no one really does the World Cup. Like,
and they
said, I want $2.5 billion for you to use my name, and EA said, tough stuff.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
I'll also say too, like, there's also more, like, you're talking about, like, the international tournaments. It's not even like tied to clubs now. It's all about like the EAFC and like building those you know, team, you know, weekly teams and like, you know, the cards, and based upon that. I mean, that's where they basically went microtransaction route. And so they're like, well, that's where we make our money. And like, you even have a game now where it's like, it's even more geared towards spotlighting players over clubs in general. So it's like, even if they had lost, you know, thankfully it looks like they haven't, but even if they had lost some clubs, you know, I'm sure they would have done exactly the same thing with Piemonte Calcio, or like what Pro Evolution Soccer did with like West London Red or whatever they did back in the, you know, what they still do. And then they would still be able to use the players, or like, you know, very slight variations of them. But yeah, like, it's so player geared now, like where you're building your own team, and it's so online based, where it doesn't, you know, you don't have to play with United. There's still that avenue, but it's not where at least their future is.
Well,
so I think they don't.
Yeah, that option to build your own teams and stuff like that. That's really, you're right, man. That's really what seems to be more dominant now, especially amongst the younger kids. They want to be able to put all of their favorite players on the same squad and win 18-0, you know?
That's the FIFA Ultimate Team. That's the I think the biggest thing was, what concerned me more than anything else was, if they lost a license with FIFA, did they lose? But I guess, and who knew, there's a separate license with FIFA Pro, which is the actual Players Association, that allows them access to the players' representatives, because, you know, you can have all the actual players on Juventus without Juventus's team.
Yeah, and then each league within that has their own players union as well. So they could have just completely loopholed FIFA altogether, because even if FIFA Pro is like, I don't care, then like we're sticking with regular FIFA. Yeah,
that's exactly what they did. So I'm not going to lie, gentlemen, for about 20 minutes, I was very upset. I was almost in tears, because it broke right on the top of the early holidays, and I couldn't take it. And then I realized I was not upset over anything, because that was all BS, and I'm good to go. All right, we're going to welcome in our good friend Chelsea Mike, who's been waiting in the wings for a little bit to talk a little bit about the big game this weekend. It is time for the FA Cup. Liverpool's dreams of the quadruple. Let's face it, gentlemen, I don't know what to tell you. That took a hit last week. The Prince of Darkness can be as optimistic as he wants and giggle and look very much like the Joker. But look, that draw to Spurs hurt them. And it's funny that it comes down to, of all teams, Wolves, that now have control over the destiny of the Premier League title. But you can't win any kind of treble if you don't win the next one in front of you. And the next one in front of you is the FA Cup competed on Sunday, right? Saturday between Chelsea and Liverpool. Might Chelsea come in the worst possible form? I mean, it's troubling.
You know, if I'm Leeds tomorrow, I'm not unhappy to see Chelsea on the schedule.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you'd think the number 3 team in the league. Well, we're in the relegation zone. That's not who you want to see. But no, Chelsea in the form that they're in. I mean, they just offered Everton a way out. If I'm Leeds, I'm kind of happy.
Mike, I'd also like to point out I had 3 Philly jerseys. I was celebrating the best of Philly today. So for those of you who are listening, I've got my Steve Carlton jersey, my Allen Iverson, and a Union jersey up. I'm over freaking 3. It's not a good night. It is not a good night. But look, Chelsea's coming in bang out of form. You're right. We don't know what type of team he's going to play tomorrow. And I actually think that he's going to play pretty conservative tomorrow because, I mean, what's bigger, finishing 3rd or 4th in the league or trying to win the FA Cup? What would you rather have?
I mean, I think he's got Romelu Lukaku in the position that he's at for just such a moment as tomorrow. I think he'll be out there, maybe Pulisic.
Pulisic with
he's
the
going to want to run
tweets.
Rudiger into the ground.
Yeah. Run Rudiger into the ground because he's going to Real Madrid. Just play the life out of him. Send him over there broken and has been. Romelu Lukaku has been relegated to not even being able to start an FA Cup game. He is now a 2nd or 3rd string striker. And we've seen some cryptic tweets out of Pulisic that really indicate problems for his future at Chelsea. Yeah, all's not right. But you got Todd Bowley.
Well, we do. Look, sale pending.
Mm-hmm. Todd Bowley, who from his expression also doesn't understand how VAR works either.
But does anyone really?
Yeah, he was very flummoxed by that. Yeah, why was that offsides? And why was the game still going at 96:30, right?
Yeah,
like it said 6. Why isn't this over?
He looked
well. Welcome to English football.
They don't actually show injury time in the stadium, just so there's not a riot. All right, Matt, Will. Liverpool go in, off of a draw, one that might legitimately have eliminated them from the quadruple, but there's still a cup treble in there. And Klopp's going to want to win everything he can. But it's going to be a packed next 2 weeks. How do you get by Wolves? How do you get by Chelsea? And, I'm sorry. And, by the way, it's not Wolves and Chelsea. It's how do you get by Chelsea? And, by the way, after beating Villa today, Fabinho went off injured. It's not like he's a minor cog in this whole entire thing, too. So all is not right on Merseyside. Matt, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, legitimate concerns. Last time I was on, we talked about fatigue. It's real. You can see it. I have to say, I like what Klopp did today and starting Tsimikas. I didn't like starting Fabinho. I actually would have saved him till Saturday. Who knows? All we have from the Kaiser is it's positive, but I'm not sure what I can make of that. And that is classic Jurgen Klopp speaking in Teutonic riddles. we're probably going to be without him on Saturday. But other than that, we should be at full strength. Thiago and Keita are going to be key because, look, we know what Chelsea's going to do. They're going to defend. They're going to attempt to take away what our fullbacks can do. And we're going to need, intelligent pressing and crisp passing from the midfield. And we have to be more clinical. I mean, outside of Mane and Diaz, the front three really has been a bit stale. I mean, Mo looks out of sort, and that's exhaustion. So we'll see. We'll see. Gonna hold off on a prediction, but we'll see. In terms of what we do with the league, fucking start, Origi, Minamino, bring the whole basement crew out on Tuesday. I don't care. We'll see where that takes us. But
we'll deal with the league. We'll deal with the league on Monday.
Exactly.
We'll deal with the league on Monday. That's Monday's problem. How many more times can Sadio Mane save Liverpool?
Well, I think that Liverpool's actually in a relatively good position for Saturday. I don't think there's really too much to worry about.
Never do.
It's a big game. It's a final. It's tough. But Liverpool have played in finals. Chelsea's played in finals. Liverpool has genuinely looked better than Chelsea this season, all season. And whenever they've come against each other, I say that Liverpool has edged it out. Can Chelsea win?
We've drawn 3 times.
Yeah,
we have 3 draws. It's literally dead even.
I just genuinely enjoy supporting Liverpool. And right now, Liverpool is in a lot better form than Chelsea. Chelsea is scraping the bottom of the barrel of whatever barrel they found out in the backyard after they got sold. Because they don't look inspired. They don't look as though they want to win. They lost to Everton, for crying out loud. And, Liverpool is going to come in and they're going to put Jordan Henderson in a deep lying number 6 role. And you know what? Jordan Henderson is going to play a deep lying number 6, and he's going to ping a raking ball out to Trent Alexander-Arnold, who's going to feed it to Salah, who's going to cross it over, and Mane is going to head it in. And, that's just how it's going to work. And Liverpool is going to win the game 3-1. That's... I'm not saying it's predicted.
That actually is my predicted score, weirdly enough. But you really are the Prince of Darkness, Will.
Oh yeah, that's why we decided on that today. Will, the Prince of Darkness, British Will.
I actually have a question for Mike in regards to Chelsea, because we've talked about their bad form. Alonso, is he like what was that about?
What do you mean? He's leaving? They're all leaving.
What was there like threatened? Did he really shoot Tuchel out? Like what's the nature of this? Because I've heard about 5 different things.
I mean, I'll say it doesn't look good for him continuing after this season as a Chelsea player.
Will we see him again this season?
I think you have to. I think he's been too good. I mean, if he's healthy, yes, of course. You have to, at least, even if he's not motivated, and Tuchel knows that, there's so many games that they have upcoming that he's going to have to play in some of them.
I genuinely hate Marcus Alonso
as a
player to play against and as a person. I mean, whenever a Chelsea fan has to start a tweet with "aside from manslaughter," which I wholeheartedly condemn, and then go on to defend Marcus Alonso, that leaves a bitter taste in my mouth.
I mean, Marcus Alonso is a club legend. Okay, yes, he's leaving, but he's always there. And you know what? I think it would be very apropos if he scored the one goal that won the game. Chelsea 1-0. And here's why that's going to happen. Okay. Here's why that's going to happen. Tuchel's going to roll out the same formation with the same players that he did in the League Cup final. And we're going to frustrate him, and we're going to miss chances because that's what Chelsea does. We're going to miss like 6 wide open chances right in the middle. Pulisic will have 4 of them. But, you know, that's what I think. Marcus Alonso comes on in the 75th minute. Cross from Reece James, puts it in 1-0. Chelsea win the FA Cup, which of course is this is the entry level to the next game, which is the Charity Shield next year against Manchester City.
All right. So let's get these predictions out of the way. Will, I've already got you down for 3-0 Liverpool. Matt, you kind of said the same thing. Your prediction was 3-0.
3-1. Close, but Liverpool put 2 out in the last 20 minutes. Divock Origi scores one final big moment for Big Divock.
All right. Will, goal scorers, if you want to hazard them?
It's going to open up with a nice goal coming in from Naby Keita. Then it's going to go off to Sadio Mane sealing it in the sort of clutch and unfortunate time. And then Mo's going to get one.
Okay.
I would love Divock to get one, but I would love Divock, but Divock's going to assist Mo.
Mo getting his first goal since they said, like, let's start playing soccer again for Liverpool, getting back on the score sheet. All right, Matt, you want to hazard a couple of scores for us? You gave me Divock Origi. Who else you got?
I agree with Will. Mane will be on the sheet, and I think Van Dijk's due. I actually think Van Dijk will get a goal.
So if before I get to Matt, if Mane scores a goal in this game and scores a goal in the Champions League final, that almost automatically puts him in the top 2, the running for top 2 for European Player of the Year. I mean, when you look at the goals that he has scored recently in big games for club and country, it has been all about Mo or Mane on that team. I know it was Mo earlier, and I know Mo has more goals in both the league and the Champions League. But Mane has been the go-to guy recently in the big games, and he's been what has kept this dream alive. Yeah, y'all can argue with that if you want to, but I see both the Liverpool fans nodding, so I know I'm right. All right, Mikey, you went 1-0 Chelsea.
I did
on a Marcos Alonso goal. Is that
I
final
think it's
prediction?
No, I do think it's 1-0. I think it's big game Kai, though. I think Kai Havertz puts the ball in the net still, though, in the after the 75th minute sometime.
All right. So,
and I think it's a frustrating game for both teams. I think both teams have missed opportunities and they come back to rue them, but they're 2 incredibly evenly matched teams and 2 incredibly evenly matched coaches. So,
all right. Final word on this. Blank wins if. Will, Liverpool wins if
they show up.
All right. Matt, Liverpool wins if
show up and Klopp gets his substitutions right.
Mikey, Chelsea wins if
Chelsea wins if their defenders are still in the game.
All right. All right, so we only got a couple of minutes left. Mike, it is relegation and promotion time. We saw the highlights of last week. We know that we can tune in a little bit later on this week for the full lower league wrap-up show. But give us the highlights of what we need to know and what we need to look out for this week in the lower leagues.
Well, we've entered playoff season in the Championship, League One and League Two. League One, started their playoffs already. They've already been through a first round, and sort of a big upset. Wickham, who were the 6th seed in the tournament, upset the 3 seed MK Dons, who had a chance at automatic promotion on the final day. And also winning in their matches was Sunderland. Actually, Sunderland won on a stunning goal in stoppage time, heartbreaking away. And instead, it's usually what happens to Sunderland, isn't it?
They have to
Instead
be
not
kicking
doing it.
themselves for not having another season. I'm sorry. How perfect is, like, just getting to Wembley with the ups and downs that Sunderland has had. Because don't forget, for a vast majority of the season, when they weren't top division, they looked like they should have been because they had so many games in hand, and then they just couldn't seem to capitalize on the games they had. I don't know. I'm just sitting there going, man, they could have had even more fans. Because look, Sunderland now, how many Americans know about Sunderland? Because of that documentary.
Lots.
I mean, yeah, it's, and I got a buddy who does not follow soccer at all, but he texts me all the time. Yo, Sunderland won. It's like, what are you doing? And it's all because I got him to watch that documentary one night, and he's hooked. So, yeah, they got to be kicking themselves. I mean, they're not, but those of us who were like, how great would it have been to be behind the scenes for this season? Because this has been such an up and down Sunderland type run, and now they're at Wembley.
Well, it would have been great to be. We could have. Remember, there's 2 seasons that are missing. They could have done a great one with the whole entire controversy over COVID and the suspension of play, which would have seen them get promoted that year, and last year and this year. So the fact that they didn't, they know. I bet you that they're kicking themselves a little bit. So it'll be Wickham Wanderers and Sunderland at Wembley for the right to go to the championship.
Yeah. And I mean, you have to like Sunderland's form coming into this. Wickham kind of bobbled in, and that's why it was such a big upset. So no, I think, but doesn't the story end? Doesn't the show end with the disappointment at Wembley?
Of course.
It's hard to pick against Wickham just because you've seen the show twice.
I'm of course, this is a win. I mean, it's going to be great no matter how this happens. But I can't remember his name. The guy who plays for Wickham now. He's about 40 years old. He's built like a defensive tackle, and he's been giving some on-field. I forgot his name. I think it's like Akinfunwe or something like that.
It is.
Yeah, and he's a total viral star. You see this guy who looks like he can bench press about 450, and but get out there and run around at 40 years old and gets to play at Wembley for his last game. I mean, you have to tune in for that alone. So. I wanted to throw him a bone just because he's been all over the Reddit feed recently, which has been quite funny.
All right.
I think he squats like 605 or something ridiculous like that. Yeah. He's our age.
Mike, what's going on in the championship and League Two? Which
all
one
right,
do you want?
Let's go to League Two first, because it's the more unbelievable story.
Absolutely.
Right. If you
absolutely
listen to the
one of the most
lower league shorts,
automatic promotions,
I kind of threw in a throwaway line that was true. Northampton Town, if they won their game by 1, then Bristol Rovers would have had to have won by 6 to go up. Well, Northampton won by 2, and would you believe it? Bristol Rovers won by 7. They won 7-0 and received automatic promotion. I mean,
you can't make that stuff up.
Yeah, can't make that stuff up.
It was honestly, though, it was the best kind of promotion championship weekend story of all of them, because outside of that, in the championship, it was kind of status quo antebellum, right? Everybody kind of held.
Yeah.
Nottingham Forest dropped from 3 to 4, but the playoff spots held. So now we've got Huddersfield, Luton Town versus Nottingham Forest, Sheffield United. Mike, let me ask you a question as an outside observer, and for storyline value only. Nottingham Forest haven't been in the top flight of English football since 1999, but Luton Town got into such financial problems that they were docked 30 points one year. Obviously, they were relegated. They were relegated out of the league and have in less than 15 years progressed this far. What's the better story for going to the Premier League next year?
And their team is valued, the players are valued at £1.5 million. Whereas Fulham is at 158 million pounds. I mean, the fact that that squad is even in the championship and competing to go to the Premier League with the meager funds they've had to put a squad on the field is more than remarkable.
All right, I was going to go with Luton Town until you told me all that. And now I'm going to go with Nottingham Forest because Luton Town, Luton Town might be the better story, but Luton Town also says to me Derby County, right? And do they have the financial wherewithal, even with all that 120, however much money it is now in that game, to go out, get the players in that they need to be remotely competitive in the league? Or am I looking at a Derby County scenario where, it's can you get out of the single digits in points? Nottingham Forest have the background, they have the fans. One would suspect that if they got the promotion, they would have the financial clout to at least make something that resembles a real run of it, right? And that's what I want to see. I don't want to put any group of fans through what Derby County went through years ago with the, basically, can we act like we're actually a Premier League, where they're saying, can we pretend like we scored a goal, or can we pretend like we're actually competitive? That just wasn't fair. And it's not right to see teams like that get up. We were talking about last week, the playoffs, and I thought you said, Mike, was it Middlesbrough or Sheffield Wednesday that you said was going to drop through the trap door and out?
I'm sure at some point I mentioned both of them. I did like Middlesbrough's chances a lot, a lot in the run up, but not exactly in the not within a week. Like a month or two ago, I thought Middlesbrough were going to go storming in there, but it didn't turn out that way for them.
Yeah,
shame. They had a great FA Cup run.
Yeah, so we'll get Huddersfield, Luton Town, and Nottingham Forest and Sheffield United in the playoffs. Yes, I would like to see Luton Town get to Wembley. I think that would be a great accomplishment for them. I think the Wembley trip for them would set them up financially well to make a run last year. I have seen this script play out where you have the small team with the low bankroll that comes in sixth place, sneaks into the playoffs, and gets to the Premier League team. And gentlemen, it did not end pretty. Derby County, the record holders for fewest points ever achieved in a Premier League season. I think they won once the entire season.
Yeah, I believe they got 11 points that year.
Yeah, it was not, and it was a race to get to 11. I mean,
wait, Mike, I have a question for Stead. Stead, you said a couple weeks ago that you thought if Sheffield United got into the playoffs, they were going to go up.
Yeah, I did say that.
Still think that's true?
I'll stick by my story. I'll say yes. I'll say yes. It's tough to pick over Middlesbrough. It is. I'm sorry. I'm not even Horace. I'm sorry. I don't know why I get those teams confused all the time.
It's not even like they're that close to each other.
I know, but I think it's
The red
because they
badge.
each have they each have very old childhood story British sounding names. Maybe that's why I get them confused.
They do.
But I'll stick with it. I'll go ahead and stick with it. I'll stick with Sheffield mainly because they did better than I thought they were going to do. And you know, yeah, I'll stick with Sheffield. I'll stick with Sheffield. I will. You can sense my lack of confidence in that pick, but I'll just go, you know, remember that I also said that Sheffield would go down last year and they did. So clearly when I picked Sheffield to do something, at least from the one time I did, it happened. So I'll stick with Sheffield to go up.
All right, Matt.
No, I like
Watch them lose
Huddersfield here.
3-0 in the first game of the playoff.
No, I know. I had MK Dons are going to kill everybody. They're
Yeah.
going to win, and then they go
Yeah,
out
make it dump. Yeah.
in the first round. But no, I do think Huddersfield here, they're undefeated in the last 7,
Yeah.
best run of form coming in. They overtook Nottingham Forest. Nottingham Forest had a chance for automatic promotion that they let go wanting in the game against Bournemouth in the last week of the season. So
They've also been in the
I can
Premier
see
League
them-
also relatively recently. Huddersfield has been in the Premier League.
Mhm.
So they, you know, them and Sheffield. So
And most
like,
importantly, I do believe that it's fitting because you know who is the celebrity fan for Huddersfield? One Patrick Stewart.
oh yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
Yes, Patrick
Jean-Luc
Stewart is a
Picard,
huge
there he is.
Jean-Luc Picard. All right. Hey, Stead, you want to see a magic trick?
Sure.
All right, so we got to get ready to go. Oh, wait, it didn't work. For once, somebody didn't chime in with, hey, I need to say something real quick.
No.
Well, I would like to. I actually would like
There
to
it
send a shout out to the Chelsea women's side, winners of the Women's Super League. Congrats to you. That should have gotten celebrated tonight, so I threw it in there, and people laughed.
Okay. Yes. I knew for sure if I said, okay, we've got to start wrapping up, Mike would have one more thing left to say.
I wasn't going to until you called it out.
You gotta do it now though.
You got to, okay. And gentlemen, it has been a boatload of fun, but like all good things, this too needs to come to an end. I want to thank Celtic Cam for coming on and giving us all the happenings north of the border in the land of enchantment. Coach Matt for coming on and joining with us and roundtabling us with us for a little bit. Of course, British Will joining us from Hawaii, getting one in. Haven't seen him in a while. Good to have the Prince of Darkness back to cast a rather large, gloomy shadow over the show, as he's always want to do. Of course, Professor Matt and Chelsea Mike, and as always, my good friend and partner in all things podcasting, producer Stead. Gentlemen, it has been a lot of fun. We did all right this week. We'll try and do better next week. So for the cast of the Too Many Guys Soccer Show, I'm Mike, and we will talk to you next week.